best and the best mom and the grandest. Like, who cares? It's thankless. It's a thankless job behind the scenes, you know.
But she
and
needed,
tell her YouTube.
She needed that to cover this sense of defect or imperfection or vulnerability that she was feeling. Like, in the end, that's what she was trying to do. And so, yeah, you know, it's, I mean, so that's kind of the kernel. That's kind of the foundation that drives this narrative. It drives the narrative all the way to the end, where she gets convicted of felony child abuse. So, but if you're thinking about this in terms of like the criminal mind, that's kind of where it starts. Or I could go back further and say that this idea of perfectionism starts in her family, or maybe even several generations before. I don't know, but certainly, but he talks about this idea fairly early on in the first episode. He says that they're wanting to look a certain way, they're wanting to be more perfect, because the capital for the Mormon Church is Salt Lake City, and they're striving for perfection in order to advance.
That is what he said at the beginning. He said, I need to be careful what I say.
Right.
And then
I don't
think
he was careful enough, by the way. I'm sure he's getting some backlash for that. But
I mean, thing to know. Another thing though that you said with that is, oh, I forgot. You said something. I was like, oh, I gotta hit on that. What was it you said?
Applied to what Kevin was saying, that her goal was to be the perfect mom.
I know what it was. You suggested that you don't know enough about Ruby.
And I should say, it's not, I don't want to just pin this on the Mormon Church either. I mean, I'm quoting Brandon Patrick, the therapist, who ideal of perfection and moral perfection, and Frankie, right? No house is big enough. Like, he could justify everything they were doing, and all the massive amounts of money they were making, and the need to expand their, you know, to get better homes and cars or whatever. is it you people value? Because if you don't have that, then you're just going to spend your time chasing rainbows or trying to cultivate these images that are completely fabricated and false. And right, and so, and I'm not saying, by the way, it's this idea of cultivating an authentic self is really difficult, and there's some debate about whether that's even possible. But it's certainly possible to cultivate a self that makes sense to someone and that's coherent and has values that we can kind of rely on, or that a person can rely on. That you know, there's different conceptions philosophically of what a self is and all that. But so I don't want to get into that too much. But the point is, like, if you really listen to Ruby, there's nobody home. She doesn't ever really say anything that represents a set of values or principles or beliefs. I mean, beliefs maybe later with Jody, but you know, she's almost like this empty vessel, and I think that's part of the problem here. When you start throwing money and praise and attention at someone like Ruby, she's just going to follow that trail forever.
You did say that throughout the entire documentary. Ruby's just so empty. She's just this empty vessel. Like, there's just nothing there. Is that what you meant? Is that what you meant? Is that what you're sharing? Yeah.
I mean, I felt, I felt some, you know, sorrow for, I felt some empathy and sadness that this person had no capacity for self-reflection and no self-awareness, right? It was just, she would make these videos, she'd throw it out to her audience, they would praise her, she would eat it up. It just became this circular feedback loop of praise and behavior and expectations. And, you know, the only way she got out of that was that moment when Chad talked about sleeping on the beanbag chair, right? It was kind of this inadvertent moment.
We had that moment, actually. Okay. Can we show that? This jumps into what you want to discuss. This was a moment that changed everything for the 8 Passengers YouTube channel.
In our house, when we take something away, it's because they have shown that they are not responsible enough to manage it. And so we don't just turn around and give it back as soon as they start acting good.
It has to be consistent.
It has to be consistent over a minimum of 6 months. And that's showing it consistent in every aspect of their life.
That's a new rule.
That's a new rule. Oh, wait, just
a minimum of 6 months.
Have I ever given something back less than 6 months?
No. My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
Sleeping on a beanbag.
I was sleeping on a beanbag since October. And they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago. I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. So pretty funny, but now I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in the suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, he was like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears and then
it happens in a way where the characters cannot react to it. They're forced in that situation to not show emotion. And so when they're removed from that situation where they can all be together and the gravity of this can rest on their shoulders, and they do have the time, and there's plenty of time. It's in that lulling book, so nobody can say in the comments, oh no, they had to get here, they had to get there, and it mattered, or they had to go get in front of their commander. No, they didn't. They had hours and hours and days, if not weeks, like to talk about this and more. I think it would have been just really good to have Violet or someone else just show that renting maybe their dragons part of that too. Like I felt like that would have showed bonding, that would have showed connection to the character, that would have strengthened the other character that's more in other books. And because death happens so often in this book, especially with the parapet and becoming part of the war college and how their lives seem to expire very quickly when they don't live long, when they bring it close to home with a close to home character, I think that is a moment to focus on. They did it with, Rebecca, their character starts really shadow. It was like, well, Zayden's absolutely gonna turn Bennett. Like, that has to happen. So whether you read the book or not, you'll know how that happens or doesn't happen. But I don't know, I felt that happened too early. So in this book, Rebecca says there's 2 characters that have not shown what their signet is yet, and everybody's getting nervous because if you don't show your signet, you basically like implode or whatever. So one of them shows, and maybe it could be lack of remembering, but I don't think the other one has yet. And I have a really good idea what that signet's gonna be in the next book. So I don't know. I think it was just kind of mid. Yeah, it was fine. It was what I expected. Some of it wasn't, but then it made sense when it did. So yep, Bennett can have signets. They must balance the power on the other side. If one has lightning, someone else should. It doesn't always work that way, it seems, but like it's pretty darn close. So interesting. All right, quick hot take rating. How would I rate this book? That's tough because I feel like I need more time with this. I literally just finished this book maybe 30 minutes ago.
Either had access to the home or was from the home